We've actually talked about bringing her. We've actually thought about bringing a wonderful speaker to our state. Her name's been thrown around multiple times through our board. And then all of a sudden, something that happened up in Idaho, northern Idaho against my niece in June of this year against a transgender in a tournament that was sponsored by a state college.
Travis, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Great. You are the chairman of the Idaho Majority Club, which is a PAC that has been in existence for a little over a year.
Yeah,
is that correct?
That is correct.
And the concept of the Idaho Majority Club is that you guys represent the silent majority, or are interested in representing the silent majority. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, fantastic. Now, to that end, you guys are doing something that I think is awesome, which is bringing Riley Gaines to Idaho to speak. And for those that don't know, Riley Gaines is the incredible monster of a woman that she is. She was a NCAA swimmer, made it to the NCAA championship, and famously swam against Leah Thomas. I don't remember his original name. Doesn't matter. But a biological male who's like 6'4" against Riley Gaines, who's like 5'7",
Yeah.
and they swim against each other. And Riley Gaines had, just been killing herself her entire career to get to the top of the field. Leah Thomas, up until that point, had in fact won, I think, 2 or 3 events in the NCAA competition against women, was also changing the locker room with women who did not want to be around a naked, biological male. And again, Leah Thomas does the impossible and actually ties him in the event. Not a second or a hundredth of a second earlier, not later, absolute tie down to a hundredth of a second. And famously was denied the award and trophy for first place on stage. They said, we have to give it to Leah Thomas. They gave no actual answer, and they're like, we'll mail you one later. And she's been traveling the country. I heard her on Joe Rogan. I heard about her before Joe Rogan, but she's been traveling the country talking about her experience and highlighting the insanity of having this kind of behavior go on, especially in a sports manner. Idaho does have a history with having transgender athletes compete against biological athletes. And Idaho Majority Club is bringing Riley Gaines here. People can go buy tickets and hear her speak and talk about her experience. What's driving this?
Honestly, we've so a couple months ago, we've actually talked about bringing her. We've actually thought about bringing a wonderful speaker to our state. Her name's been thrown around multiple times through our board. And then all of a sudden, something that happened up in Idaho, northern Idaho against my niece in June of this year against a transgender in a tournament that was sponsored by a state college, university here in Idaho. And that happened. And then all of a sudden the Olympics happened with the boxer. And so I get a text from my board members we have a group text every day, literally going off all the time. And they're like, it's time. We need to bring her now.
Right. And just a couple things. Your niece in a tournament, a sports tournament, what sport was this?
It's basketball, actually.
Okay, great.
So she was up there playing, and we're actually going to be having her, videoing her. We actually have a testimony that we'll be sharing at the event that night as well, of her own words of what happened. She was actually picked up by a transgender, thrown against the bleachers, dislocated shoulder, and had a concussion that she couldn't even do her, put her hands to the nose or finger to the nose scenario, and didn't know where she was.
God, that's terrible.
And then that team that the gender was on, they won the championship. The boy was not on the picture. Since then, that team's Facebook has been wiped clean of everything.
So she was playing basketball against a team that had a biological male on it, and the biological male that was actually playing on the court assaulted her.
Yeah.
She got a concussion, dislocated her shoulder. The team goes on to win the tournament, and then they wipe all evidence off of, say, social media. MTU Studios is the proud producer for the Ada County Sheriff Podcast, the Idaho Wildlife Federation Podcast, the State Representative Ted Hill Podcast, the Idaho State PTA Podcast, and many more. If you or your organization is thinking about starting a podcast, MTU Studios would love to help. Just check out mtustudios.com.
Yep, that's correct. And then the only thing we have is technically the video of the parents that are on our team videoing on this when it happened. And this team actually came from Montana, from a small town up in middle of nowhere, Montana, came to Idaho. The coach had no clue what to do. I mean, first time, ever seeing a transgender, a boy on another full basketball team, and he had no clue what to do.
Right.
And knowing that we've been the Title IX issue, we've had legislators that we had a law in Idaho basically prohibiting transgenders to be on a basketball or any sports in Idaho that was been challenged by the courts. And so at this moment, there was nothing we could have done at the moment because it's been being challenged.
Gotcha. And the Olympic boxer, this is actually a little distinct. So what I envision with you talking about your niece's experience is a biological male being born and raised as a male.
That is correct.
And then deciding at one point or feeling at one point in this person's life, like, hey, I actually should be a woman or I am a woman, and then going over it. The boxer in the Olympics is a little different in that this person was born and told by doctors, hey, you are a woman, and moving on, like living life as a woman. There was no like, hey, I've been, pumping iron with dudes because I'm a dude and now I'm a girl. So slightly different, but definitely brought attention to the issue. And gosh, first off, that's terrible about your niece. I hadn't heard anything about that. And people are, I was speaking to one political candidate recently who was saying, hey, look, I don't think the transgender athlete problem is really a problem. I was like, okay, this is going to be a hard push for me. And, I actually do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've done it for, a decade and a half. I do competitions and I train with women as well. There's nobody in the world that could tell me. And I've trained with the best women in the world. And I mean, people that won the world championship, absolute weight division, unlimited weight division. There's no comparison in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu between men and women. There's just not. And for people to say that really gets my cackles up. It's like, I'm not playing ping pong. Like I'm literally wrestling around and fighting people. This is not fair. But the individual that I was speaking with was saying, hey, look, it's not that common. And it's like, okay, one is too many, at least in my position. There should be no woman ever who loses to a man in a sport that is not co-ed. Like my wife plays on a co-ed water polo team, and they actually just won a tournament this summer, which was awesome, open water polo. But she goes into it knowing I'm a woman. These are 250-pound dudes. This is going to be a heavy lift. Here we go. And they end up going out and they win, right?
Well, she signed up for it.
Right. She knew. Everyone knew. It was not like, hey, this is a women's water polo tournament and a 250-pound, 50-year-old dude shows up. It's like, oh yeah, call me Tiffany. So the point is, some people are saying it's not that common, but in this example, this is not something that made the news here. Like I didn't hear about this. It's obviously something that had horrendous outcomes. And again, one in my opinion is too many.
Yeah. Well, and we were, honestly, this situation, my sister-in-law wasn't even there at the tournament. She was actually, because she's a teacher up in Montana, and she had to drop off her daughter and she had to go back up. I mean, we get the phone call, she gets the phone call, we get the phone call. We're on our way back from it actually happened the same week as the convention up in northern Idaho in Coeur d'Alene, while we're up there for the Republican convention. And I was on my way back and we get the phone call that my niece is being transferred to the emergency room because of this situation. And my wife and I we were like, holy cow, this is actually happening in Idaho. And I coach I coach football. My wife is a volleyball. She's been a volleyball coach. She had a full ride scholarship for volleyball. And all of our kids played basketball. My father-in-law was in the NFL. Both our families been in the sports arena for years. My dad actually coached an Olympic team for wrestling. I wrestled girls that came on the wrestling team, but they made the decision to come wrestle in wrestling.
And everyone, like I've had to wrestle girls before too, right? Like I wrestled in high school. I was not a very good high school wrestler. But, and by the way, there are some very incredibly skilled women wrestlers
100%.
who, like there was that gal that recently placed at the tournament in Fargo. Yeah. And again, wrestling against males, but everyone acknowledged this is a girl wrestling in the male category. And we will accept that because we recognize she's at a disadvantage physiologically. Now, obviously, incredible technically, and, I'm sure a specimen as far as female wrestlers go, but there's an acknowledgement that, hey, we're not changing what men and women are. No. We're just saying that this girl is asking if she can wrestle in the guys category, and we are saying that is okay. But we're at no point saying she should be changing in the same locker room. At no point we're saying that she is actually a man.
Yeah, and you're actually correct. I mean, my sister, my oldest sister, in San Jose, she was actually one of the first girls actually wrestled in the state of California in the state division, and she actually won the Mayor's Cup during that year. Against a boy, and she didn't realize that she was going to do it, but she decided to go and wrestle. My dad, she was a little shy, and so my dad's like, well, let's do it. Now she's not so shy, but she made a choice to wrestle the guys. In this scenario, the girls didn't just made a decision to let the guy come in. They signed up for all girl sport. Right. I mean, I personally feel like it was a tragedy what happened up in northern Idaho with my niece, honestly. And we need to be able to stand strong in Idaho. Basically saying it is happening in Idaho. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say on that.
I presume your niece and sister live up in northern Idaho?
My niece is actually from Montana,
Okay.
Plains, Montana, which is outside of Kalispell, in between Kalispell and Missoula area.
So they just happened to be in northern Idaho for this particular tournament that
Yep.
was sponsored and essentially sanctioned by colleges and Idaho funding.
That is correct.
Was there, and again, this is wild here, was there any fallout in the tournament? Like did the person get like kicked out of the tournament? I mean, was there?
So my sister-in-law actually sent a letter to the state, to the college, and basically explaining what happened. And to this moment, she still has not received a response back to them, to her about what happened, because she believes that this was a tragedy that should never happen. They did not respond back to her response. And then, so she's been reaching out to me because I have a lot of connections in a lot of other avenues, to be able to get those responses back. But she's been trying really hard to get something from at least from the colleges explaining why. There's many other things that happened there that this tournament, like they didn't have the proper medical people there. They had over 50 different high schools coming in and playing, and nobody had the proper training for taking care of the situation when she had the concussion. And when she dislocated her shoulder, they're like, we can't find ice packs. We have nothing. And so there was a lot of mistakes in that tournament, particularly. Sorry.
No, you're good. There are some problems with the current state of our legislation, not our legislators, right?
Yeah.
But our legislation, like our laws in Idaho, are lacking in some areas. For instance, the Nampa Pride Parade was one classic example of this, where you have two biological males that show up and are bare-chested, but they have elective plastic surgery to make it appear that they have female breasts, right? If they are females, if you're a woman in Idaho, you can't walk around bare-chested, right? Yep. You can put on a very skimpy bathing suit, but you essentially have to, cover the middle of your breasts. If you're a man, you can walk around bare-chested. Like if we go to the lake, we can, just have, our trunks on and walk around. That's no problem.
We like our tans.
But the one of the problems that came out of this, and I was speaking with the city councilwoman, Natalie Jangula, she said, look, it's not like Nampa can't do anything about this. We don't have the existing laws in place to stop this from happening, right? Because these are two biological men and they're bare-chested, and some people are very upset about the fact that they had this augmented surgery and they were flaunting it. And yeah, like I understand why, but like I, as a city councilwoman, this is what she was saying. She's like, I don't have the laws in place to do something about that. This is what the legislature needs to convene and figure something else out. Do you think that this situation that you're talking about with transgender athletes playing against biological athletes in Idaho, do we have existing law that you feel that is not being followed or upheld, or do you think that this is a problem with our legislation?
There was a law that was actually already placed. They actually did pass it during this last legislation period, but it was challenged by the Biden administration, and that's why Raul Lavador, our attorney general, was basically fighting it. And finally, I believe, if I remember right, it did go to the Supreme Court, and I believe that they actually upheld the Title IX rules that basically
When you say they upheld the Title IX.
the Supreme Court. I believe that if I remember, it's a 5-4 vote. If I remember,
No, you're good. You're good.
5-4 that basically said yes, Title IX. There's a separation between women's sports and men's sports in that scenario, and I believe that happened last Friday or 2 Fridays ago.
And that applies to transgender athletes in that they're saying, hey, if you are a biological man, even with the Title IX stuff, you cannot play against biological women.
That is correct.
Okay. And so that the period of time when your niece was playing basketball, this was like 2 months ago or something.
That was correct.
Okay. So that law hadn't been flushed out appropriately by the Supreme Court yet.
That is correct.
So now if that were to happen, there's existing law in place. So you say, hey, if that's a biological man, he cannot be playing against these girls in Idaho.
That is correct.
But that doesn't necessarily apply, is that a law that then applies to all states?
That is my understanding. It's only for Idaho. That's because multiple states, there's multiple states that did have passed laws in this last year or so about this. And if I remember right, there's about 12 different states that put laws into place that basically prohibited transgender male playing in a women's sport. And all those 12 different states, attorney generals basically said, okay, we're going to go, they got sued by the Biden administration, and then they fought it in the Supreme Court. But I know Idaho particularly we are one of the leading states in protecting women's sports. I mean, I've been meeting with the governor and talking to his staff and making sure that we are continuing to push forward for this and making sure that we are protecting our women and our children and why they're playing sports in Idaho.
What a wild thing.
Yeah. I don't
I'm
know why we're talking about this today.
I'm listening to you say these things, and it's just registering over and over and over in my head. It's like, how is this even reality? Like, at what point did we come to that, we need to sacrifice women's sports to theoretically defend transgender males' rights to play against women? Like, why would we do that? And and again, just this conversation is inflammatory and very, upsetting to some people, like not you and me, aside from the fact that we have to be talking about it. But I'm so taken by it, and thankful again for the millionth time that I live in this state and that this state is taking meaningful steps. But it's wild that you have to be meeting with the governor. If I may ask, and don't divulge anything that you can't, but like, I presume that the governor and the staff, governor's staff understand and are on the same page. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. We've been working on this, he's been really helping us out. He's actually one of our big sponsors for our event, bringing Riley Gaines in to our event this Wednesday. And so we're doing a rally at the Capitol with him on that Wednesday morning. And then basically we will be, And so he's definitely a big support of this. And I'm really blessed to be in a state, like you said, that has a governor that's willing to stand up for the protection of our women. Because there's a lot of states out there, and I'm not going to say them, we all know California, that do not want to protect our women. I mean, they want to degrade them. And our women are our precious thing. I mean, that's what my dad taught me. I mean, that his daughters are the most important thing to him, and his wife as well. I don't have any girls. I have 4 boys, but I teach my boys that they darn well better respect their women and anybody that they come in contact with. And I'm teaching them that boy's a boy and a girl's a girl. And they just got to respect them.
Yeah. I was telling you, I was driving my 12-year-old to middle school today. And, I drive him every single morning, and we have this conversation. Okay, what's on the agenda today? What are you doing today? And he's like, well, I got band, and then I got like this, and we're like going back and forth. And he's like, what are you doing today? I'm like, well, I'm interviewing this man, and he's bringing in this. So I haven't had to have this conversation with him, because it's like the birds and the bees are bad enough, but like the Riley Gaines conversation is crazy. And again, I was at once so thankful that I haven't had to have this conversation. And the impetus for this conversation was that I was getting to chat with you. I was like, this is great, right? Because this is it's not something that he's had to deal with in his life. But again, at the same time, it was, gosh, how do I explain this insane world we live in? That it's like, this is a problem. And he's very competitive. Like we had the Olympics yesterday at my house. Okay. So it's like these ridiculous games. I have 3 boys and we're all really competitive. My wife's a savage athlete, savage competitor as well. So we were playing these games and taking it really serious, and like they're made up games, right? It's like the long throw basketball shot. So you have to stand across the yard and huck a soccer ball across the yard and make a basket. You only have 25 shots, right? And you have to have somebody who's catching when you miss, because if not, it's going to go into mom's, like, you know, lavender plants. And that's a problem. Yeah. So you like got to grab it. And we were having, and like taking it so seriously. And it's great to have that level of competition and instilling that in boys. But at the same time, it's like, boys are still boys, right? Like you can play under with the understanding that it's like, okay, you can have co-ed sports, you know, and we had these medal ceremonies that the medals were actually different size slices of Rice Krispie treats that we made that morning, right? So the gold medal was like this big old, and the little bronze was this little sliver. So people were getting really into, it's like really good Rice Krispie treats, but we still, it's
your
like,
wife made them, right?
No. So my 12-year-old made them.
Oh, wow.
Because we actually took all tech away from our kids last year, and we said, listen,
amen to that.
Right. And we were not a tech family prior to COVID. And then all of a sudden COVID hits and we have to get these tablets for them to do school. And all of a sudden tech like weaseled its way into our kids' lives. Like my oldest never even we didn't let him watch TV until he was like 5. And now, of course, like the youngest was watching, you know, Moana from like a very young age. No more Disney though. Anyway, the point is, it's not the point. The point is, you know, like we took all tech away from him and we said, okay, look, we know you like these things. They're not good for you. So if you lost this aspect of your life playing these stupid games on these iPads, if you lost this and you could no longer do this, what would you want to replace this with in your life? And one of the things is my oldest son said, I want to learn how to cook. And he also wants to learn how to bake. My wife's a great baker. I'm terrible. They watch like the like Great English Baking Show or something. And like, they're always trying to cook and bake and do things. Anyway, so he makes them and we get into it. But again, even with that competition, it's important to have boys and girls playing together. At least that's my opinion. And again, my wife is a really skilled athlete. So it's awesome being able to engage in sporting events where you have, you know, at least in my mind, I've always loved that I have this woman that I'm close to, that I compete, and I don't know if I'm going to win. Like it's not a foregone conclusion ever.
So in your family, are you able to play board games?
Oh yeah. Oh my God, get out with the board games. Oh, it's so intense.
We can't, we learned that we can't play them anymore because we are so competitive that somehow somebody's getting in a fight at the end of the day. And so we basically said, okay, we'll just play basketball, we'll play football, we'll play something else, go play water polo in our swimming pool. But yeah, board games are one of those things that we love them, but I love them. We have more board games than anything, but it's very competitive.
Man, we had this hot debate over an Uno rule once, and it was like when do you call Uno? And it was almost it. Like it was almost hung it up, split the assets. Like it was almost over, right? But again, I think people that sometimes hear this, the sentiment that, hey, we should not have men playing against women, bastardize the argument to be like, you are trying to make women subordinate, or you're trying to damage, like no. I think competition in sports and engagement, deep engagement between men and women, especially when you're growing up in co-ed endeavors, like at swim practice, right? Yeah. Growing up, like you would have women in your lane, or sometimes if you were swimming real fast, maybe you wouldn't, but that's not like, you need integration, right? But we also need to recognize, like, that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater and say like, okay, we need to integrate. Okay, that man is now a woman. Like that's just, it's a ridiculous jump that some people make, that it's just like, you're not even like, we know this to be false. Like everyone knows it if they've ever actually played a high level of sport.
Well, and you're right. It basically, because you need the co-ed, you need that interaction with women and men, or little boys and girls, to be able to learn how to live with each other and compete against, I mean, in that scenario. But you're right. But they signed up for it.
Right.
It's different when a gentleman or boy comes in on a girl's team and says, I'm a girl, to play.
Right.
My niece did not sign up for that. She didn't get signed up to be thrown by a male against a bleacher and dislocated her shoulder. She didn't sign up for that. we as Idahoans know that that's wrong. And you, like you said, I didn't know what's happening here in Idaho. It is happening. And maybe our children are not telling us as much what's going on really in school. I mean, sometimes if we don't have that conversation with them, I mean, because we think it's never going to happen here. I mean, it is. I mean, just having a nice conversation.
Well, it could.
Right. It could. And
right. For instance, and again, for school districts, no. I'm with you. And like my kids go to West Ada School District schools, and I love what West Ada is doing. Like, they are not messing around.
No.
They have non-politicized classrooms. You don't get to fly flags, anything but the Idaho or U.S. flag. You don't get to bring, all the nonsense in. Boys go to the boys' bathroom, girls go to the girls' bathroom. Excuse me. So you can acknowledge, hey, it's possible anywhere.
Oh, yeah,
even
100%.
if it's not happening yet. So let's take meaningful steps. And to that end, I think there are a lot of steps being taken in the state of Idaho that are preventative steps. And Representative Hill, for instance, brought up the compulsory gender language bill this last year, and it passed, and it's now state law. It's like you can't require a school teacher to call somebody by a pronoun doesn't match their biology. So these are real things that are being brought up and addressed because they see, Idaho sees the national stage and says, okay, instead of freaking out about this, let's just write laws to prevent this, and then we're not going to have to deal with it.
Well, not leaving it in gray area.
Right.
I mean, just be straight up. I mean, we can't leave the gray area. We got to basically say a boy is a boy and a girl is a girl.
Right.
Let's just basically call it is. A spade is a spade. I mean,
yeah. And the other thing you said, that the people sign up when you do a co-ed sport, you sign up. And your niece is a horrendous example of somebody who didn't sign up. But in the case of Riley Gaines in particular, it's not that Riley Gaines chose to compete against this person. And it's not even that she saw Leah Thomas on the blocks for the first time and was like, oh, I'm about to dive off. Like, that's a dude and I'm a girl. Like, it's that they made the rules to say, hey, if you want to compete as a woman, you have to compete against this person. Right. If you want to compete in the women's category, it's a requirement.
It's a enforcement.
Right. And just hearing about what essentially the PR was, or, the manipulation of the athletes saying, like, you can't speak out about this. You can't say anything about it. And of course they're like, how is this fair? Like, you're actually curbing my First Amendment rights as a prerequisite to me competing in this area. Like, that's wild.
Well, and he also took this First Amendment and basically the power of speech.
Right.
I mean, from her, because she couldn't speak out about it, saying, no, I don't want to play. I shouldn't play performing against a male. I mean, does that make sense? I'm like, we should be able to say, I'm sorry, but no, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up to play in a woman's sport.
Gosh, man. That's this is a big one. So she's coming out, and this is this Wednesday.
This is Wednesday,
26th,
28th.
Excuse me. So today's is 26th.
Yeah, 26th.
Okay. 28th. And again, what is the event? Because you guys are putting this on. She's coming out to speak, and it's Wednesday the 28th. Where is it?
So basically, we got a couple things going on. So we got a rally with the governor on the 28th at 11:30. We're bringing a bunch of athletes throughout the valley coming in to support this rally throughout the whole valley. A bunch of legislators are coming out as well. And then from there, we're doing the main events later on that evening. It's South Meridian. Basically, you can get your tickets at IdahoMajorityClub.com. That after you buy the purchase of the ticket, that's when you be told where the location of the venue will be. So it is South Meridian. Basically, we did that because, one, we didn't want a bunch of naysayers there, because some people believe that this is a horrible topic, but it's not. It is basically, we are trying to bring awareness to Idaho and just say that this is happening in Idaho, and we want to stand up in. It's almost like our civil rights issue of our times. It almost feels like that, but it's not. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Listen, I think it makes complete sense. And if there is anybody listening who's like, hey, I disagree with Matt, right? And They disagree with you, whatever. That's whatever. But I would be happy to host anybody in here and talk in good faith about what the merits of a policy that allow men to compete against women would be. Like what is the value for the state of Idaho? What is the value for the women athletes in Idaho? What's the value for the male athletes in Idaho if you feel that there's value there? Like this is perhaps it's a terrible topic, but it is a topic and it is something to be discussed. The idea that we can't discuss it, right? Like you and I shouldn't be able to have an opinion on it is silly. We are literally talking about a policy for sports. That's it. Like, why can't we talk about that?
Well, and it's not even just in the policy of the sports. It's protecting our women, our children in their locker room. I mean, growing up, we had coaches that were guys. They weren't allowed in the girls' locker room. They always had to have a coach that was a girl to go in the locker room. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, I wouldn't want my daughter, if I have a daughter, and we both don't have daughters, so we have nieces and nieces, but I would never want a male in the girls' locker room with my niece or anybody. It's not right.
Did you hear what? Again, I don't know if you're familiar with, but when they made complaints to like the NCAA or the people running it, the response was literally like, if you're uncomfortable as like a 20-year-old woman being around male genitalia, then like you essentially need to go get therapy. And they're like, maybe it's not male genitalia. Maybe it's his genitalia. Like maybe maybe I'm married at 20, whatever. Like, it's not like you're missing the point. It's not that like I'm horrified of seeing a picture in anatomy. I don't want to be around that person naked, like, and that person naked as in that person's, that body. And I don't want to be naked around that person either. Like, that's it. Like, how about that?
Well, you're being forced to do it.
Right.
It's not right.
No.
I mean, just because she wants to compete at that level, she shouldn't be forced to do it.
Right.
I mean, okay, well, you know what? Send him to a different bathroom or whatever.
Or let people decide to compete.
Yes.
If you want to have a co-ed sports competition, let people do that. Yeah. That's fine. Again, my wife was on a co-ed water polo team. That's fine. Yep. You want to do it? Do it. But you should not be forced to do it as a require. You should not be forced to require the mixing of biology when we have gendered sports.
Yep. Yeah.
Man, this is wild. So again,
Crazy
Wednesday
time.
the 28th, you'll have a rally at the Capitol. Then when you purchase tickets, the location will be told to you and you can go. It's
South Meridian at 7 p.m. Like I said, we made it basically as affordable. We actually have family packages. You buy 2 adults, you get the 2 kids free scenario. We did a lot of, we had a donor that came in and basically said that I will pay for a lot of the students as well. So we really have had a lot of success with the donors coming out, the sponsorships. Like I said, the governor's 100% behind this, and we have a lot of legislators that are behind this as well. And actually even a lot of businesses in the Valley that were just like, we love Riley. We really want to stand up for her.
She's dynamite.
Oh, she's amazing.
She's like the Jordan Peterson of like this issue.
Oh, yeah.
She's just so she's so perfect. It's just everything about her. She's super eloquent. She's super clear and on point. I mean, the whole thing, like you couldn't find a better spokesperson.
Well, and we're going to give her an Idaho welcome. Honestly, I've told my VEC chairman that we're going to get her a nice little basket of welcome basket. Her sister is actually pregnant, and we were almost not going to have her this week because her sister's due any moment. And so she wanted to be there for her, the first granddaughter and their family or the niece. And so we actually got her a little onesie with somebody in Idaho care about you. And it's cute. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're excited for it. And we're hoping that that she'll just love Idaho and know that we are here to support her and her whole family.
Could you imagine if she relocated? Like if we got Riley Gaines?
Oh, it would just be an amazing thing here in Idaho.
I bet people wouldn't complain about that transplant.
No, definitely not. But she's not from Cali, so we're fine, I guess.
Yeah, oh my God, I love it.
Just kidding.
Oh my God, no, you're not. It drives me nuts too. Anyway, listen to me. I appreciate what you guys are doing. Thank you to the Idaho Majority Club for bringing Riley. Is there anything we've missed? Details people that want to know or what the motivation is?
No, I think that's everything. I mean, I think it's, again, we're excited for this event. Like I said, it's not just me, but the majority of Idaho believe in this. We are the silent majority, and we need to stand up. And I think we need to definitely support these things. I don't think it's, and don't be afraid to stand up. There's a state, we actually will be giving out T-shirts for anybody that came out to the rally at the Capitol. And actually, when they get their T-shirt, they'll be actually get a free pass to get into the event that night as well. And it actually is really cool. It's actually about Idaho women, or Idaho stands with women's sports. And then on the back of it, it's basically stating that when they wanted me silent, it's one of Riley's statements. And I'm gonna blow this up. Sorry. It's basically when they wanted me silenced, it made me speak louder.
Right.
And so it's something really cool that we stand as the Idaho Majority Club.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Well, Travis, thank you for coming in today. I appreciate you. Thank you for everything you're doing for Idaho. And man, everybody go out to that event.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much again.
Yeah. MTU Studios is the proud producer for the Ada County Sheriff Podcast, the Idaho Wildlife Federation Podcast, the State Representative Ted Hill Podcast, the Idaho State PTA Podcast, and many more. If you or your organization is thinking about starting a podcast, MTU Studios would love to help. Just check out mtustudios.com.